Hello, and welcome to The Beat, a news and talk program brought to you by the for Community Media in Worcester State University. I'm your host, Abigail Silber, and today we are talking with the award-winning hypnotist, Dan Candell. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We're glad to have you.
Well, thank you.
What led you to becoming a hypnotist?
Well, I actually started when I was like 13 years old. I had some learning challenges when I was in school, and I couldn't focus, concentrate, comprehension wasn't an easy thing that came naturally to me. And what would take my friends like a half an hour to do would take me like 3 hours to do. And I was like, felt like I was on the struggle bus a lot. So I actually went on a camping trip and saw a stage hypnotist. And that's kind of like what I do now. That's my bit. I hypnotize people on stage. And when I saw this guy, I was like 12 years old. He hypnotized like 20 people on stage, and it's like they became his puppets. It was like some magic and mysticism behind it. I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I want to try that. So I actually memorized what he did, and I went and practiced in my basement with my friends when I got home, and it worked. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. So after that, my parents found out I had an interest in it, and they're like, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to read books about it, and so they got me books and like video courses, and from there, I started training myself to do self-hypnosis. And literally within like 3 weeks, all the learning challenges I had went away. I started to develop somewhat of like a photographic memory. Things that were challenging became easy for me. And then I started hypnotizing other students who had similar problems. And then I started traveling around to like libraries and corporations and hotels and doing these big stop smoking sessions and weight loss sessions, helping people. And then I started doing stage shows, so traveling around doing stage shows and hypnotizing people and having them do funny things. And then when I got to college, I actually went to Assumption right down the street. Don't boo. And so I actually opened up this little hypnosis business in my dorm room, and I hung a sign on my door. It said, "Get A's and get hypnotized to get A's, $10 a person." So it actually got so popular, I'd hypnotize 5 people at a time in my dorm room, and it was a good way to make a lot of money. $50 a pop, like I'm all set. So after that, when I graduated college, I opened up a hypnotherapy office and continued to perform all around the country. And I've performed for celebrities. I help out people. I wrote a book, and it just it morphed to this thing where I've won several awards being a hypnotist, and it is not just what I do, it's my passion, and it's what I love to do, and helping people with it as well.
That's probably why you're so good at it.
Oh, I do my best.
That's
I do
such
my
an
best.
Interesting start.
It really is. It's different because a lot of times people, when they first get into it, it's like a retirement profession. So when people have a job for their entire lives and they'll be like, okay, we want to just help people, we want to work with people, they'll take a course in hypnosis and open up a little office. And you know, it's a good way for people to make an additional income, also a really good way to help people on a bigger scale.
Can you tell our viewers what type of training or certifications you completed in order to become a successful hypnotist?
Sure. So there are no licenses for hypnotists. In fact, anyone can open up a book and learn to hypnotize someone. Actually, learning how to hypnotize somebody is very easy to do. It's what you do with it, and that's more of a skill that takes a lot of practice. It's knowing how it works that takes a lot of practice. So there's several organizations. One is the National Guild of Hypnotists, which is the world's oldest and largest organization for hypnosis. They have a core curriculum that you take. It's a 100-hour curriculum to learn how to do basic things in hypnosis, like weight loss, smoking cessation, stress reduction, habit change, everything like that. And then there's other organizations, ICBCH. There's conventions you can go to, the Hypnothoughts Live convention, where there's like over 1,000 hypnotists. And we go to these conventions, we teach, we take classes from each other, and then after that we plot on how we're going to take over the world. So no.
Too much power for one room.
Yeah, right? So, but essentially, in order to become a credible hypnotist, there is a curriculum that you go through. I now teach that curriculum. There are a few curriculums I teach people. I do continuing education for hypnotists as well. And it works very well. it's one of the most effective ways for a person to make a change easily. And then there's stage hypnosis classes you take, because there's many different branches of hypnosis. So it kind of depends what you want to do. But like I said, anyone could open a book, learn it, or watch a YouTube video, learn it, and then go and hypnotize a friend. But it takes a lot more than that to open up a practice, to really know what you're doing, because you're working with someone's mind. And that's the thing. You want to make sure that if you're working with a hypnotist, you want to make sure whoever that person is qualified to work with you. And I joke with my clients sometimes. I'll see like 8 people a day, and people will come to me and they'll say, oh, you've hypnotized thousands and thousands of people. And I'll be like, I know, can you believe they let me get into people's minds? But it really is something, like I said, it's a passion. And you want to make sure whoever you're going to, they're passionate about it, but they also have that credibility. So to answer the question again, there's many organizations where you can go and get certified. It's not something that's regulated like psychology or traditional therapeutic therapy would be. But there are certain classes that you take in order to pursue a career in hypnotism.
Did you have to overcome any obstacles on your way to becoming a hypnotist? And could you elaborate on them?
Yes, absolutely. One of the obstacles, I started so young. So people would hire me to be a hypnotist, and then they'd say I was 14 years old when I was when I was showing up. And they're like, you've been doing this for like a day. And my age has not always worked for my benefit. And it wasn't until I became like 25 when I started really embracing being the young guy.
Yep.
And because when I was 13, 14, 15, I was always trying to be older. I would wear like a tuxedo, or I'd wear a 3-piece suit, and I'd change my voice and have a deeper voice. I grew facial hair very early on. So I was trying to mask the fact, because so many people wouldn't think I was serious because of how young I was. And even until I was 24, 25 years old, people were still saying to me, oh, you're not that old, so you mustn't have been doing it that long. And now I tell people, like, I've been doing this more than half my life now. Like, I wrote a book about it and my experiences. I've worked with thousands of people, and that's the thing, is I wouldn't call it age discrimination. I just call it like people are judging you because they don't think that you're credible if you're younger. And there have been a lot of obstacles as well, with people not thinking hypnosis is legit, or them being skeptical of hypnosis or something like that, or not believing it. So there are some things like that you have to work around. But after you've been in the profession a while, you know how to work around that.
Right. Plus, you mentioned that a lot of hypnotists start this in their retirement.
Exactly.
So people are used to seeing the older faces.
Exactly. In fact, last year, I won the equivalent to the Hypnosis Lifetime Achievement Award. And there's people who are like in their 70s and 80s who have been doing this. So I'm like, I feel like I should have won the Halftime Life Achievement Award, because there's people who have been doing it for longer than I have. But the reason why I was recognized is because I do so much with it. And it's almost like being I equate it to being like a pastor or a minister. You are not never a pastor. You are not never a minister. And it's like wherever I go, I'm the hypnotist. I was at New Cafe getting lunch, and someone came up to me like, oh my God, you're the hypnotist. I'm like, I am? But it's, you assume this identity wherever you go. And especially if you're in the public eye and you work with so many people, you just have to assume that, and that's why it has to be a passion, because if I wasn't passionate about it and someone came up to me and was like, oh, you're the hypnotist, and if I wasn't passionate about it, I'd be like, leave me alone. But I love it when people come up to me, and I love it when people talk to me, and we like joke around and stuff. Like, I'm kind of a goofy guy anyway, so it really does benefit when that I love to do it, and I love to help people with it, because it just helps me be more genuine. It helps me be more real as well.
Right, and it probably definitely helps people believe that what you're doing is real.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You are a behavioral communications specialist. In what ways have you helped people change their behavior specifically?
Absolutely. So being a behavioral communications specialist, or as I call it, a behavioral communications consultant, it's not just hypnotizing somebody. It's really, in fact, this title was given to me by my mentor. And she said, Dan, what you do is so unique, where you're not just hypnotizing people. You're working with people to change their behaviors. You're teaching them how to change other people's behaviors, and also change their communication styles and adapt their communication styles to meet other people. So being a behavioral communications consultant or specialist, it's more than just hypnosis. It's encompassing so many different modalities where you can help a person change any behavior, a thought, feeling, sensation, or emotion, and you can teach other people how to tap into other communication codes to help people feel more comfortable, from doing things like building relationships to changing a relationship. And there's so much you can do with it, but there's also many different modalities that get into a person's subconscious mind. And that's where hypnosis happens, in the subconscious mind. So it's pretty interesting because there's many different ways to get to that end result. And being a behavioral communications specialist is utilizing all of those ways to get to that result, not just hypnosis, because there are some people that respond to other modalities just as well, but they need different interventions to get to the subconscious mind instead of just hypnosis. So there's many different modalities behind
Just
it.
like any type of therapy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Huge impact on people.
Huge impact, different strokes for different folks. Therapy is usually working with the conscious part of the mind. That's a logical, critical, analytical part of the mind, responsible for willpower and analytical thinking. So with therapy, it's usually therapists are trying to get you to analyze why you are the way you are. In hypnosis, that's like everything else under the tip of the iceberg. And that's where we're getting to the subconscious, which is a part of the mind that stores every single thing you've ever heard, seen, felt, and experienced, learned, read, smelled, and tasted. Based on that, it composes your beliefs, behaviors, feelings, sensations, emotions, personality, and programs of sorts. I'll be quizzing you on this later. And that's where we want to get to. And with hypnosis and being a behavioral communication specialist, we're driving the message to the subconscious mind, where a person really does take on the reality of what's being presented to them. In a therapeutic setting, if you came to me for anxiety or stress, and I said, Abby, the things that used to stress you out no longer do like they did before. In fact, now those things empower you instead of stressing you out. Your mind takes that on as a reality when you're hypnotized. If I told you on stage, on my count of 3, you'll open up your eyes and you're going to see a huge orchestra in front of you and you're going to be conducting this imaginary orchestra, you respond as if that were actually happening.
Yep.
So that's how hypnosis works, getting into the subconscious mind.
What do you say to people who are skeptical about hypnosis?
Get over yourself. No, no. It's a very common thing. There are a lot of people who are skeptical about hypnosis. In fact, so I do like online videos and stuff like that, and I have an online class I teach. It's a 1-hour virtual session that people can take before they come and work with me, all about 5 mindset shifts you have to make in order to overcome anxiety. And sometimes people will sign up for it, and then they'll sign up for what I call a discovery session with me, which is a 30-minute time for me to ask you some questions, gain more insight into like what you'd like to accomplish and what holds you back and how we're going to go about doing this. And sometimes I'll get emails that say like, oh, I signed up for this, but I'm skeptical. I've tried everything else. Like, I don't know if this is legit. And I get that. And the reason why people are skeptical is usually because of what they see in the movies or on television, where hypnosis is misconstrued. In fact, last week or 2 weeks ago, Law and Order SVU had a hypnotist on, and the hypnotist was hypnotizing people to kill other people. There's another one on where hypnotists were hypnotizing people to kill themselves. And these things it's not possible to do. Hypnosis isn't brainwashing, it's not mind control. In fact, there's 4 things that people need in order to be effective with a hypnotist. And it's willingness, so willingness and open-minded, a motivation, an expectation, and a belief. And it doesn't have to be where they believe in hypnosis, but they have to have a belief within themselves that they can overcome their whatever issue they want to overcome. And another reason why people will sometimes have a skewed reality of hypnosis is because of stage shows. And full disclosure, like I do stage shows, But I always end my stage shows with an empowering moment that I call 2 minutes of transformation, where you take everybody up on stage and you literally, as a gift for them coming up and allowing me to play with their minds for a little while, I give them a gift to really reprogram themselves to achieve any goal that they want to accomplish. And so to those people who are skeptical about hypnosis, I say, I get it, I understand. Why are you skeptical about hypnosis? And I'll open it up and have a conversation with them. So they'll usually open up and say, oh, I'm skeptical about hypnosis because, you know, I saw this stage show and it looked really phony. Or I saw on TV and it looked ridiculous or something like that. So I'll engage them in conversation and find out why they have these beliefs, and then I'll tell them that they're completely wrong.
It's nice that you can see where they're coming from, though.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How has your hypnosis shows raised money for school groups and other organizations?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. So when I was very young, I had this goal of I wanted to raise money for nonprofit organizations, and a really good place to start were schools. And like every school has a student council, every school has like a football team or a music association, and all these places need to raise money. So I started going into schools, and this actually, I'll tell a story here, which almost got me in a lot of trouble. When I was in college, my psychology professor had us come up with this project, and he said, what do you guys, I want you to come up with a goal, and I want you to reach that goal, or at least write about reaching your goal by the end of the semester. So my goal was I wanted to make X amount of money each month by doing X amount of fundraising shows. Now, part of setting a goal, there are obstacles that sometimes pop up along the way. One of the obstacles was there was another hypnotist who was on my tail who just started out. And he was going around to all the shows and schools I was performing for and basically saying, like, don't hire Dan, hire me, I'll do the show for free. So that was an obstacle I had to figure out how to get over. So what I did is I said, you know, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and I'm going to tell people that I can make them money with this, and the show's essentially going to be free, but not really. So what I did, I started doing a 50-50 deal, and where I started saying, you know, I will, using my marketing knowledge, because I majored in marketing and psychology in college, so I can mess with your mind and sell you something, I guess.
Dangerous thing.
Oh yes, yes, very dangerous. It's a combination with hypnosis, like that's super dangerous. So, so I would go to these schools, and when I was in college, I would go to certain schools in the area, and I would pretend like I was still a high school student. And I would put my backpack on, I'd put a baseball cap on, walk into the principal's office as if I was a student. Oh gosh. And of course now if I did that with all the regulations and everything in schools and all the things going on in schools now, of course I'd probably be in jail. Whoops. But I would go in schools when I was in college because I still looked like a high school student. And I would go into the principal's office and I would say, hey, I saw this really cool hypnotist and I think we should get him for the student council. And I would like pretend to be a member of the student council. And I would give the principal my promo package and they would book me. So it was actually really interesting because I had a lot of marketing experience and background where I would say, here's how you make money with a show. So what I do now is I go into schools and I go into different nonprofits and I say I'm going to do a show for this amount of money. However, all you have to do is sell 100 tickets in order to get my fee back. Anything you make over 100 tickets, you get to keep. So I didn't realize how much money this would bring in for certain schools and organizations. There's a school I just performed for last week and they had 600 people in the audience.
Wow.
So they profited like $5,500 in 1 hour. And I was thinking, you know, that's not a lot of money, but then I realized what they're doing to make money, car washes and candy bars and selling pies and candles, and they'll maybe profit $400 off of that. So to make $5,000 in 1 hour, where they were spending before weeks and weeks selling candy bars and car washes and doing bottle and can drives and stuff like that and getting a few hundred, making $5,000 in 1 hour, people are like, whoa! And so it it became my brand of really getting, formulating a program. So now I have a team of people that works for me, and this team, they design flyers and tickets and everything like that, and we have this whole fundraising package that we do. I'll go in, I'll do the show for an hour, hour and a half, and I'll leave, and they'll pay me, and they'll get paid as well. So it works out where it's really a win-win situation for everyone.
As we were talking before, is there anything that you can share with our viewers to let us know what conducting hypnosis is like?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of exercises I do in my shows and everything like that to show people what hypnosis is like, so they can kind of experience it from their seats without actually putting them into a hypnotic trance. But if you think about it, people who are listening and watching at home, or in your dorm rooms, wherever you're watching this, just know that we're hypnotized every single day, several times a day. We go in and out of zone states. So, Abby, have you ever driven down the road, you zoned out while you're driving, you end up at your destination, you don't remember how you got there?
All the time.
All the time,
All
right?
the time.
So that is exactly what hypnosis is like. Same thing if people start daydreaming or going to a state of focus, and they're in such a deep state of focus, like everything else in their outside world kind of disappears. It's like texting is a good example and stuff like that. These are all common examples of hypnosis. So there is a pretty cool exercise that I can show everybody that actually it won't hypnotize you, but it'll show you what hypnosis is like, okay? Sure. Now, I promise, I told you before, I'm not going to hypnotize you, but I just want you to go along with this exercise to show everybody at home, and I'm going to go along with it with you as well. Okay, perfect. So I want you to clasp your hands together like this, all right? Make sure your palms are touching. Everybody else can do this at home as well. And I want you to take your 2 index fingers and put them out just like this. Wonderful. Now I want you just to look at me for a moment, because in a moment I'll count to 3. Now on my count of 3, I want you to spread your 2 fingers apart, and when you do, you're going to look at them, you're going to listen to my voice, and you're going to imagine what it's like to have like magnets glued to your fingers, or imagine what it's like to have rubber bands attached to your fingers. You're going to notice they're going to like pull in like that. Okay, now let it happen, and it will. It's going to be pretty cool. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Separate those 2 fingers. Watch them. They're going to touch. They're going to move in closer and closer together until they touch. Exactly. It may have been slow at first, but they move in closer and closer together. There they go. Yep, just like that. There they go. Perfect. And as they move in closer and closer, they'll touch. When they touch, you can take those 2 fingers apart. Watch, they'll touch faster the next time. There they go. Yep, faster and faster this time. Faster and faster this time.
Oh, this is
excellent.
So weird.
Right? Isn't it cool? Isn't it cool? So you can kind of like shake out like that. Perfect. Now, what that is, that's what we call a hypnotic suggestibility test or concentration exercise. Now, people, so I did a TED Talk a few years ago, and people tore me apart because I did this in my TED Talk, and they're like, that's not really hypnosis. But it's like hypnosis, and here's what we look for. When I'm doing a hypnosis show, or even seeing some clients in my office, I'll put them through a couple little exercises, because I want to, number one, make sure that they can focus and make sure that they're willing to go through these exercises. So what you displayed this here, you're activating that same part of your mind that's necessary and required to go into hypnosis, which is a willingness, an openness, like we said, motivation.
The 4 things.
The 4 things, exactly. So based on that, you just showed that you would be an excellent candidate for hypnosis, because again, you allowed it to happen, you willed it to happen. And again, in that state, you went into like a little zone, right? You still heard everything that I was saying. You weren't asleep, you weren't unconscious. You're still very aware of your surrounding. You just went into a little zone where you allowed this to happen. And for the people at home, that's exactly what this is like. It's just a zone. In fact, when you're hypnotized, you're not asleep, you're not unconscious, you're pretty much aware at all times of everything that you're doing. You're just in, you're in a different zone state where you're zoned more into the goals that you'd like to achieve and accomplish, instead of zoning into all the problems that hold you back from them. So it's like a resource state that we help people tap into. And we can do it with people's eyes closed. We can do it with their eyes open. And like I said, that's what I wrote about in my book of how to have people do this and communicate with other people hypnotically like this, and gaining a state of compliance. And that's very similar to what hypnosis is like.
It sounds like an extreme focus.
That's exactly 100%. That's exactly what it's like. And it's like so relaxing, and when people are hypnotized, a lot of times they'll just like they feel so good. It's almost like they're kind of relaxing back on a beach or something like that. And it's a good way to help a person feel really positive, really empowered, really motivated, and that's where we get in touch with that subconscious mind.
Finally, if our viewers would like to see you perform, how would they go about doing so?
You can go on my website, dancandell.com. There's a list of performances. Also, if you go on my Facebook fan page, Dan Candell Hypnotist. Dan Candell Hypnotist is kind of where you can see all my motivational videos, show clips that I do, everything like that. And because that's where I'm usually posting everything myself. But also, I'm going to start performing at the Woo Ha Ha Comedy Club in downtown Worcester. So it's 18 or older. It's going to be more of an adult show, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And my first performance at the Woo Ha Ha Comedy Club is going to be, I know, right? Is going to be Wednesday, April 3rd. So right in the middle of the day, I'm calling it Hump Day Hypnosis Show. It fits
That's catchy.
Yep. So that's Wednesday, April 3rd at 8 o'clock at night. So, and tickets I think are $20. If you contact me, I think they're allowing me to give away like 5 free tickets or something like that. So sometimes I can give away tickets to my show. Not always, but sometimes I can. So always contact me if you plan on coming to a show.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this segment of The Beat. Please remember to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. We'll see you next time.